What? That short sentence left me in shock. I couldn't regain my composure for a long time that I only stared at Shane in disbelief that he said he took Zach to his mother's place. Didn't he? Zach's grandmother should know about Zach's condition. She wouldn't let Zach eat just anything. So, why was Zach in the hospital? And how did Luna know about Zach's condition? Which hospital is it? Shane hurriedly picked up the clothes that had fallen on the floor and put them on in a panic. Luna cried on the phone while telling him the name of the hospital. Worried about Zach, I could only follow behind Shane. It was then that Shane noticed my presence that I knew my expression was grim, as if I was on the verge of exploding, but I ultimately held it in. He opened the car door and got in immediately. I also got into the passenger seat. We were silent the entire journey. My head, messy with information, slowly started to clear up during this 20-minute journey. In other words, Shane was sending our son to Luna behind my back, even though he said he and Zach would cut ties with her. In order to keep me from noticing anything. He even went as far as to sacrifice himself, using the excuse of wanting a second child with me to distract me. I turned to look out the window. It turned out that in this entire family, I was the only one who wanted things to go back to how they used to be and live a good life. Their hearts had already shifted toward Luna long ago. When I arrived at the hospital, I rushed straight to the infusion center. Zach was all by himself in the large room. With his head tilted to the side, he rested against the wall. Clearly, he had fallen asleep. I strode over to him. As I looked at his peaceful, sleeping face, my heart was filled with pain and anger. I felt sorry for him. He was too young to understand what was right or wrong. But those adults who knew better still indulged him despite being fully aware that he had a sensitive stomach. They were the reason he had to be frequently hospitalized. What infuriated me was that the culprit who got him admitted to the hospital didn't even stay here to accompany him, leaving him all alone. She didn't care whether he would be scared or not. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Then, I sat down beside Zach. Not wanting to disturb him, I gently supported his head and let him lean against my chest. Erilyn Jaffe, my son cares about you and lets you stay home as a full-time housewife to take care of the child. Now look at what's happened. A shrill voice accusing me sounded from the doorway. I turned to look, only to see that the person approaching was Shane's mother, Charlotte Anderson. She had just rushed over, but to cover up her own negligence, she was determined to strike first. Under your so-called utmost care, Zach's stomach has been having problems every few days. Was she trying to shift the blame onto me? When conflicts arose with the elders in Shane's family, I usually held back to avoid putting Shane in a difficult position. But Zach was my bottom line. I would never back down when it came to issues concerning Zach. As I didn't want to wake the sleeping Zach, I deliberately lowered my voice. Still, I couldn't hide my anger. Mom, you know better than I do who's the reason Zach's stomach has been acting up. I certainly do. Charlotte sneered. Erilyn, Zach has spent the most time with you. If you had taken proper care of him, his stomach wouldn't be weak enough to end up in the hospital just from eating some food. I looked up and met her gaze. All the frustration that had built up over the afternoon finally boiled over, and I growled. But when Zach's with me, he was never hospitalized because of stomach issues. Charlotte was taken aback. I had no intention of stopping. On the contrary, ever since you said you wanted to see Zach and asked Shane to drop him off at your place after work, his stomach problems started occurring more frequently. I also reminded you not to feed him random food. But did you listen? I couldn't say I had no grievances against my laws. It was just that I always thought it wasn't a big deal in the past. Also, since they loved the child so much, as long as I gave them a heads up, they would surely pay attention and wouldn't make the same mistakes again. It turned out I overestimated them. You not only ignored what I said, but you also sent the child to Luna. You let my child develop a bond with Luna. She's the mistress who's trying to interfere in our marriage. Today was no different. Shane came home and told me he had sent the child to your place. Just a few hours later, Zach was at Luna's house, vomiting and having diarrhea, and was sent to the hospital. And then, just the thought of what I saw when I first arrived at the hospital made me sad. She left just like that. She left a child here by himself. Charlotte opened her mouth to refute, but she didn't know what to say. Mom, I struggled to speak. I know you've never thought highly of me. I also understand that Luna is the only one you actually acknowledge as your daughter-in-law. If you hate me and want to torment me, come at me. Zach is, after all, your grandson, and he's still so young. He can't take this kind of turmoil. Charlotte didn't expect her usually obedient daughter-in-law to snap back at her. When she snapped out of her reverie, she was about to scold me to teach this disobedient daughter-in-law of hers a lesson. But before she could say anything, Shane rushed in and interrupted her. Mom, please stop talking. Whenever there was conflict between me and my in-laws, Shane would side with me no matter what. This was one of the reasons I was so devoted to him. Charlotte was even more furious when her son intervened. You ungrateful child, didn't you hear how your wife scolded me? Shane, with a cold expression, stood beside me. Is there anything wrong with what she said? Charlotte was left speechless. Shane continued. I've made it clear to you that I won't have any more contact with Luna. Yet you still secretly sent Zach to her. Your actions have already affected the relationship between my wife and me. Hearing this, I looked at Shane in surprise. Did he not know about this? Charlotte seemed to have a lot to say but ultimately held back, settling with glaring at me that my attention was fully focused on Zach. I didn't have the time or energy to engage with her. After thinking it over, I decided to make things clear. Mom, I won't be sending Zach to your place anymore. I didn't know exactly when Luna started interacting with my son. However, I hoped there would be no contact between the two of them from today onward at the same time. I would make more time to spend with Zach and guide him. As long as I was patient enough, he would definitely return to being the healthy, well-behaved child he used to be. Without hesitation, Charlotte objected. Absolutely not. I was merely informing her. Whether she opposed or supported it wouldn't change my decision. As she didn't get a response from me, Charlotte turned to Shane. Shane simply said, I support Erilyn. You too. Charlotte was furious, but there was nothing she could do. After a long standoff, she had no choice but to leave when she saw that neither of us was willing to compromise. Only our family of 3 remained in the big infusion center. I held Zach in my arms, with Shane sitting beside me. Zach was sleeping soundly. However, he woke up abruptly when the needle was removed. He opened his eyes and looked at me. Confused, I gently patted his back and softly reassured him. My darling, don't be scared, I'm here. Zach pouted, clearly unhappy. It's your fault. Why did you have to come to the hospital? Maybe it was because I was his mother. Even though he was throwing a tantrum at me, I still found his little pout adorable. Don't you want me here? I asked. Of course, Zach answered without missing a beat. If you hadn't come, Ms. Luna would have stayed here with me. Zach's innocent yet blunt words pierced my heart like a needle. While sick and in his most vulnerable moment, the person he thought of was still the very woman responsible for making him ill. I looked down at him. The illness had clearly taken a toll on him. After saying just 2 sentences, he had already fallen back asleep. Shane had heard Zach's words too. He took my hand, uttering, honey. I didn't feel like talking to him, and tried to pull my hand away. However, he tightened his grip, refusing to let go. What happened today was just an accident. Mom acted on her own. Zach only said that because he's sick. He didn't mean to say that. I can understand where Zach's coming from, I said as I carried Zach and headed toward the exit. He's infatuated with Luna, so naturally he thinks she's perfect in every way. I paused for a moment before continuing. And yet, I've strictly forbidden Zach from seeing Luna. He's bound to react strongly against it at first. Zach is not a bad kid. I'll guide him back to the right path. He'll understand who truly has his best interests at heart. However, I hope you mean what you say. I can treat today as an accident, but I don't want a repeat of this. As I spoke, I stopped walking. Shane, noticing I might be tired, instinctively reached out and took Zach from me. I will. I promise, honey, Shane insisted. Watching Zach sleep soundly in Shane's arms, I didn't say anything else. Shane parked the car after we got home. Seeing how peacefully Zach was sleeping, I decided not to wake him and started to carry him out of the car myself. However, Shane was already at the passenger door. Let me carry him, he gently offered. He easily scooped Zach up with one arm and extended the other toward me. Surprised, I looked up at him. His tall frame and handsome features under the streetlight made him look almost godlike. He softly said, "Let's go home, Mrs. Pierce." I sighed inwardly and took his hand as I stepped away from the car. "Let's go." When we got inside, Shane laid Zach down on his small bed. I filled a small basin with warm water and brought it into the bedroom. Shane helped undress Zach, wrung out the towel, and gently wiped his body. Zach slept so soundly that he didn't wake up even as we cleaned him and changed him into his pajamas. He just occasionally whimpered, expressing his discomfort. Shane only smiled indulgently when he heard it. Then he tossed the towel into the basin and carried it out of the room. I sat by Zach's bedside, watching him. His attitude toward me had been getting worse lately. Every time we talked, he would quickly lose his patience and speak harshly to me before we even had a calm conversation. Only when he was asleep could we find peace between us. "Honey," Shane called as he walked over, gently lifting me in his arms. Instinctively, I wrapped my arms around his neck and looked at his profile in confusion. "What's the matter?" Using his elbow, Shane turned off the light and then closed Zach's bedroom door. He hinted, "Do you remember what we agreed on before going to the hospital?" I had forgotten what happened before the hospital, but I remembered everything clearly after we got there. When I was holding the child in my arms, I genuinely considered divorcing Shane. But then I wondered, if Luna was already causing problems for my child while Shane and I were still married, what would happen after the divorce? Would Zach still live a happy life? For the sake of our child, this family must never fall apart. These thoughts that consumed my mind the whole night made it impossible for me to recall what happened before we went to the hospital. "Care to remind me?" I asked. What a scatterbrain. Shane smilingly closed the bedroom door. He then cupped my face and gently pecked my lips. "Honey," his voice, lowered in the quiet of the night, carried a tone I couldn't quite describe. Shane chuckled softly, playfully purring. "Remember now?" He was trying to tease me. I, on the other hand, wasn't about to let him win. What should I do? I still can't remember. In Shane's eyes, I saw my reflection. My long hair, flowing like a waterfall, spread across the white sheets. My face, flushed from his kisses, looked radiant. Shane's Adam's apple bobbed slightly. "Let me help you remember." The mental strain and the exhaustion from a night of stress left me feeling tired. But Zach had just been admitted to the hospital due to stomach discomfort, and it was clear he needed careful attention. I had to force myself to get up early to prepare breakfast for them. Since Zach could only eat oatmeal as he recovered, I used a ceramic pot to make it a bit more mushy. First, I brought the water to a boil over high heat. Then I turned it down to a low simmer. I glanced at the time, it was just past 5. So I went to a nearby market to buy some greens and meat. After returning home, I quickly washed and prepared the vegetables. I waited until it was time for Zach to get up before I started cooking. There were 2 dishes in total. One was sautéed spinach, and the other was beef stew. After finishing both dishes, just as I was about to call them out for dinner, I heard a series of quick footsteps. Zach ran up to me, his cheeks puffed out in dissatisfaction. I said I don't want to come home. I want to stay at Grandma's. He glared at me. "Even though I'm sick and even got 4 fluids, you should still take me back to Grandma's when I was discharged." He thought I was unaware of what was happening and believed he could use Charlotte as his reason to continue seeing Luna. But I chose to expose him directly. "Do you want to go to Grandma's and then have her take you to Luna's?" Zach froze. As a child, he had never experienced something like this. He didn't know how to deal with such situations. "Zach, starting today, I will no longer take you to Grandma's." Zach instinctively protested. "Why do you get to decide that?" I rarely took a firm stance, but I did this time. "Because I am your mother." "In that case, I don't want you to be my mother anymore." Zach broke down. "I want to go to Ms. Luna's house. I want Ms. Luna to be my mom." Zach was the child I gave birth to after carrying him for 9 months. I had painstakingly raised him. Yet now he didn't want me anymore because of a woman who had only spoiled him with unhealthy food. My heart ached with each thought. Zach's jet black eyes were filled with tears. Just crying wasn't enough for him to express his frustration. He looked around, then picked up the glass from the table with his chubby hands and hurled it on the floor. Clang. Glass shards and water scattered everywhere. My hands and feet turned cold. He didn't just break a cup, he shattered my heart. I couldn't understand how he could hurt his mother for the sake of a woman he had only recently met. It seemed Zach didn't feel he had done enough. He began smashing everything else that he could in the house. When Shane came out, he couldn't help but frown upon seeing the messy living room and Zach throwing things. "Zach, what are you doing?" Hearing his father's voice, Zach stopped crying and ran over to Shane. "Dad, you like Ms. Luna the most, don't you? I beg you to divorce Mom and marry Ms. Luna. I want Ms. Luna to be my mom. I want to be a family with Ms. Luna and live with her." With his head tilted, he looked up at Shane. His teary eyes held the unique innocence and confusion of a child. He looked both pitiable and endearing. When Shane squatted down, Zach no longer had to look up. Zach met Shane's gaze and sobbed. "Dad, won't you say yes? You're still young." Shane sighed, clearly affectionate toward his son. He reached up to ruffle Zach's hair. "Zach, if you keep losing your temper at Mom like this, you'll regret it in the future." Zach shook his head. "No, I won't." As if worried that Shane wouldn't believe him, he wiped away his tears. "Dad, let's leave Mom and live with Ms. Luna. I dream of having Ms. Luna as my mom." Every word he spoke was firm and resolute. Instead of responding, Shane only patted Zach on the shoulder before standing up. I bitterly turned to look at Zach. I had always thought his desire to be a family with Luna was just a fleeting whim. However, he had had more than one outburst. His attitude didn't seem like a joke. He genuinely longed for Luna to be his mother. What about me? What about the mother who unconditionally devoted herself to him? Did I deserve to be cast aside? Pain flooded my heart, like countless ants gnawing at a bleeding organ. "Honey." Shane came over and hugged me, gently patting my back to soothe me. "Don't be sad. Zach is still young. He doesn't understand what he's saying." I had repeatedly advised myself not to take to heart anything Zach said. He was still a child, and I should be forgiving of him. Yet Zach's straightforward words always seemed to cut right through me. I managed to let out a small hum as I stayed in his embrace. Once I calmed down, I stepped out of his arms. "Let's eat." Shane released me. I turned and went to the kitchen, placing the dishes on the table. Worried that the ceramic pot would burn me, Shane voluntarily carried the pot. Zach, clearly disappointed that he hadn't achieved his goal, exclaimed, "Dad!" "Eat," Shane said firmly, not allowing any refusal. "Don't make me say it twice." Only then did Zach obediently sit down, holding his small bowl and taking small sips. There were too many glass shards on the floor. As I was afraid the boys would get hurt, I started cleaning up while they ate. While eating, Zach swung his chubby little legs and muttered, "I hate Mom. I despise Mom." I stopped sweeping when I heard that. Before my heart could ache, I reminded myself that I had already anticipated this. During the initial period when I didn't let Zach contact Luna, I knew he would fiercely rebel. His words would only get more extreme. I just had to endure it. To be why the time I finished cleaning up the glass shards, both of them had finished breakfast. Shane led Zach to the door and reminded him, "Tell Mom goodbye." "I don't want to," Zach huffed, turning his head away and refusing to look at me. I stood in the house, watching the two of them. My heart, which had been in intense pain, seemed to finally calm down. "Honey." Shane took my hand, leaned in and secretly kissed my lips. "Don't take it too seriously. It will be fine after this period passes." Yeah. Zach's kindergarten was a daycare. He had to be dropped off before 8 in the morning and picked up by 6 in the evening. Usually Shane would pick up Zach on his way home from work as he didn't want to trouble me. But starting today, I decided to resume the responsibility of picking Zach up. I just hoped that spending more time with Zach would strengthen his love for me. However, I didn't inform Shane in advance today. I wanted the three of us to go home together. To free up time for picking up Zach, I quickly finished my chores and even left an hour early, arriving at the kindergarten gate ahead of schedule. After I waited for a few minutes, classes finally ended. The electric gate opened, and the teachers held back the children, confirming each parent's name before allowing them to leave with their parents. "Zach Pierce," a teacher called out loudly. "Is Zach's parent here?" "Here." I raised my hand and quickly walked forward. At the same time, another person rushed up beside me. I instinctively turned my head and I saw Luna, dressed in a long red dress, her wavy hair cascading over her shoulders. She wore exquisite makeup and had a warm, confident smile. "Hello, miss. I'm Zach's parent." I froze in place. Why was Luna at the kindergarten presenting herself as Zach's parent to pick him up? Did Shane deceive me? He said he would pick him up on his way home from work, but in reality, was he having Luna come to pick him up? Was this all just to give Luna enough time to bond with my child? This speculation left me stunned and my heart ached painfully. "Mrs. Pierce." The teacher spoke to Luna while keeping a wary eye on me. She also responded when I called for Zach's parent. "Do you know her?" "What?" The teacher actually said that Luna was Zach's mom and my mind was in a whirl. Slowly I began to realize something. No one at this kindergarten knew I was Zach's biological mother. Instead, everyone seemed to assume that Luna was Zach's mom. That meant Luna had already come here to pick up Zach many times without my knowledge. So, who had brought her to pick up Zach? Who could have made the teachers assume Luna was Zach's mother? The looming truth felt like a sharp blade, slowly slicing into my heart. Was it Shane? Luna had never seen me before, so she looked a bit surprised when she saw me. She reached out her hand toward Zach, saying, "Sweetie, come over and see if you recognize this lady." Me? Lady? I found it laughable. Zach was the child I carried for 9 months, and now they were saying I was just some lady. Ridiculous, I was about to retort when I saw Zach obediently walk over to Luna, take her hand and look at me from a distance. After a long pause, he shook his head, exclaiming, "Mom, I don't know her." Boom! The smile vanished from my face, and all I could hear was a loud buzzing that drowned out all other sounds in my ears. My own son called Luna Mom in front of me. He even said he didn't know me. His cruel decision tore my heart to pieces. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face. Luna, still maintaining her poised smile, remarked, "You must have mistaken him for someone else, lady." "I'm not mistaken." Hastily wiping away my tears, I cried out, "Zach, come here." "No." Zach hid behind Luna, glaring at me with his wide eyes. "You don't think I'll go with you just because you call my name, do you?" Luna exchanged a glance with the teacher. The teacher cautiously asked, "Could she be a child trafficker?" Luna shook her head. "I'm not sure." To ensure Zach's safety, the teacher decided to call the police. But I didn't care anymore. I quickly stalked toward Zach and announced, "Zach, I am your mother." "No, you're not." Zach frantically hid behind Luna. "My mom is her."